So I got a tip today from a very sweet lady by the name of Connie, who just purchased side tables from me recently. And she sent me a post from Facebook Marketplace about 2 side tables for $20. So I'm on my way to go check them out. Score. And he's cleaning out a storage unit because he's tired of paying the rent on it. So I said, hey, keep me in mind if you got any more of these or dressers. Woo-hoo. Hi, this is Amy. Welcome back to Table Flipping Housewife, a fun space to get creative with furniture crying to be restored. I'm relatively new to this flipping craze, but it quickly became my passion. So let's get to it. Okay, so I already know the finish is failing there. This is something I discovered when I was looking at it with the seller. You can tell it's bowed. So this is, I think, going to be the biggest challenge, to sand that smooth and seal it properly in order to paint it smoothly. The drawers work well. One of them needs to have this reattached, but that's easy because this is there. Ah! I've always wanted to find treasure in the back of my furniture I pick up. Alrighty. Now that it's home and inspected, it's time that I give it a thorough clean before I bring it into the basement. I'm going to remove the hardware, which I like. I don't know if I like it for this project, but I'll definitely keep them for something. And then I will be vacuuming the pieces inside the cabinet itself, underneath, just a thorough vacuum. And then I'll be washing everything with warm water and Dawn dish detergent, and then wiping that down with clean, fresh water to remove any soap residue. Now, a good rule of thumb, when you're cleaning a piece that has some damage to the finish, if you're not sure what's under there, if there's a possibility that it is pressed board, MDF or anything of that matter, then be sure if you're washing it that you rinse and dry it immediately, or better yet, use a spray cleaner that you can spray and wipe right off. I don't have any, because if there's MDF or any kind of press board in there, if the water gets in, it swells up and it is very difficult, if even truly possible, to get it sanded smooth. So as I suspected, this is definitely pressed wood underneath. You can see the little fibers coming out. Now, the more I cleaned and dried this off, the more and more bumps I found. They're all over. So what I think I'm going to do is peel back as much of this as I can and kind of dig a little bit of it out, because the only way I'm going to actually sand this smooth is if I remove some and create a pocket to fill with Bondo, and then I can sand the Bondo smooth. At least that's what I'm going to try to do. Look it. This one was really bad. So I'm going to seal the exposed press board with some shellac. It's an oil-based primer. It's the only kind of product or paint substance that can go on top of press board. Do not use water-based sprays or primers, because even the water in the water-based primer will swell this back up again. So I'm going to seal those raw spots with some shellac. And now that all of the exposed press board had been protected with shellac, it was time for me to mix up some Bondo to repair the gouges that I had made in an attempt to smooth out the top of these tables. Bondo is a 2-part epoxy. When you mix the 2 elements together, you have about 25-30 seconds in order to put it in place before it hardens. Now I did this for both tables. This is the side table that wasn't as bad, but I filled in all those gouges on both tables with the Bondo. It dries quickly, so probably about 45 minutes later, I then sanded the top of both of the tables to see what it looked like. I started with a 150 grit sandpaper just to break through some of the Bondo. Then I switched to a 220 to smooth everything out. I had to be very careful not to once again bust through any more veneer. So I filled that once. It's really nice and smooth. I still see a little bit of particle board there. This one is nice and smooth too. Here's the challenge I was having. See how the particle board goes right up to this groove? Well, this groove was getting Bondo in it. So part of the groove was filled, part of it wasn't. I didn't like that, so I'm just going to fill all of this all the way around with wood filler like I already did there. And because no more particle board is exposed, I can use this as opposed to Bondo. Now, because of the condition of the tops of these two side tables, I thought this would be the best opportunity to try something new, something that's very forgiving for surfaces that are scratched or dinged up. I thought I would go for kind of a combination between the Pottery Barn dupe look or an attempt to make what looks sort of like natural wood. Now I'm going to be starting with a light tan color paint. You could use any light color that you have. Go to the Oops aisle at Home Depot or Lowe's. Maybe they have one. As long as it's a light in color, it will be fine. If you can't find it, then just get a sample tin, which is only about $5. Now, in order to do two things at once, I'm going to mix my paint, my light tan paint, into a can of primer that's almost empty. It's going to be probably 1 part prime, 2 parts paint. I'm going to mix that up. This way, when I get my first coat of color on, I'll also be priming at the same time. I'm going to be using a Glaze for the very first time. I've never used this product and I'm pretty excited. All right, so I'm going to apply it in, again, the same direction because I'm trying to model wood grain, right? All right, now, almost unanimously, when I've looked into this on YouTube, people have recommended a deck staining brush. We're going to use this brush in one direction. We're starting to make that wood grain look. Okay, so now that that first one is done, I'm feeling a little more confident. I've learned a few things, so I thought I would start from scratch on this one. Now you can keep manipulating the, even when I finish doing this, I can go back and keep manipulating that up there. Glaze takes a long time to dry, and so you have a long working time. But I'm going to stop there for now for that section and finish applying the glaze to the rest. All right, just put a little on my brush. I'm going to go in this direction first, brushing it. Now what I have noticed is I'm having better luck on the sides if I do not use the deck brush. It's too small of a surface and I just found that it was taking off too much glaze. And I'm going to squeeze it to have more control over the bristles and slide in one movement. And then it was time to start getting the rest of the pieces ready for paint. I scuff sanded everything with 220 grit sandpaper, vacuumed off the dust, and then used a tack cloth to remove whatever dust remained. And then it was time to prime. I used Zinsser Bullseye 123 primer to prime the pieces. I put on 2 coats since I was painting a light color in the end. Now you'll notice I brush it on with a brush in straight lines and smooth it out, and then I go over it with a high density foam roller. I want to make sure when I'm done with this that I have a smooth surface on these pieces, and there's no way to get a smooth surface if your primer has brushstroke marks in it. Now because I have new hardware, I'm going to be drilling the new holes before I proceed with the paint. So last night, I ended up mixing up 3 bottles or 3 jars of Dixie Belle chalk paint, 5 ounces of the sandbar, 6 ounces of drop cloth, and then an entire 8-ounce jar of fluff. Mix them all together to get the color that I'm going for. Okay, can we paint now? Phew, that was a lot of prep. All right, we're finally ready to paint. I'm pretty sure I'm gonna have to water it down a little bit. I'm going to be using not a natural bristle brush, but this synthetic brush by Zebra, because I don't want brushstroke marks. So we're gonna use this synthetic brush. I wanna show you the paint. See how thick it is? It's still too thick. So I have my water mister. I'm gonna add a little bit of water. Now I am going to also mist my brush, because that helps you apply it smoothly too. All right, that's the consistency I want. You don't see the designs in the paint as it's dripping back into my cup. My brush is already damp because I just cleaned it after having painted something else. I'm going to cut in the top first in a small area, because what I'm going to do is paint in one direction. That's also going to help eliminate brushstroke marks. And then I'm going to smooth it out and then not touch it anymore. Once the paint, like most paints, starts to dry, you don't want to mess with it, because when the paint starts to dry and it gets a little tacky and you go back to it with your brush, it creates what painters call drag. It drags that drying paint and you can see it. So I've applied it in one line. I'm smoothing it out in one direction. And then I'm gonna leave it alone. Excuse, that something I can get out? No, okay. What I've been doing is lightly sanding the first coat just to smooth things out, remove any debris that might have landed in it that I didn't scoop out in time, and then I'm applying the second coat. All right, so it's time to seal the painted parts of my side tables. I'm going to put something different on the tops of them, but this is chalk paint and it is a requirement that you seal it with something because it's very porous, and any oil, dirt, even oil from your hands will mark up the surface if it's not properly sealed. Now, I typically use polyurethane and spray it on, but I want to avoid the heat and the bugs for that matter, so I've opted today to try something different. I happen to have a very small container of Dixie Belle's Best Dang Wax in white. Now, there are two ways that you can apply it. You can apply it with a lint-free cloth. I've purchased these, I believe, off of Amazon. A lot of people use cut up rags, t-shirt rags. Now, if you're going to do that and you're using white wax, be sure to use a white t-shirt. I personally have found that it leaves too much lint even though it's a worn, washed t-shirt. So, I'm going to show you two different ways to apply it. I've cut my lint-free rag in half. Get a healthy amount on your rag, and then in this small section, I'm just going to go back and forth. I have found that I have better luck applying it in kind of a circular motion to make sure it gets into all the crevices of the porous surface of chalk paint, and then smooth it in one direction. So this is one way you can apply the wax, and it's certainly a very economical way. The other way that I've done it is with the Dixie Belle La Petite brush. I have found that it makes it easier to apply, but you certainly don't need a brush. But I'll start at the bottom, since that's the position of my camera. Again, this is a natural bristle brush. You're going to get some bristles that come off. Just pull them out. But I find that this has saved me a little bit of time. I'll apply it up here. Hey, I've got a tip for you. If you are buffing wax and you have red fingernail polish on, I would suggest you wear gloves, because if you accidentally scratch the surface, you'll end up with a red mark from your nail polish. Don't ask me how I know that. I use Midwax clear lacquer to seal the tops. It was the first time I used this product and I was not a fan. When it dried, there was a powder residue on top. It was so odd. I wiped all that off and ended up brushing on 2 coats of polyurethane. Overall, I am so pleased with the way these turned out. I think they're so pretty, and I think that the gold hardware is the perfect jewelry for them. If you like this kind of content, please subscribe to my channel and give this video a thumbs up. And if you have any constructive thoughts or any questions, please leave me a comment below. I do enjoy responding to every single one.